Two Humerus Nurses would like to acknowledge the true custodians of the land in which we record our podcast, the Yorta Yorta people.
We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend our respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders listening today. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
We're so excited for this episode to be sponsored by eNurse. eNurse is Australia's leading one-stop nurse shop. eNurse specialises in everything a nurse or nursing student would need to survive.
From comfortable, stylish and keep you cool under pressure Elitecare Scrubs to handheld study guides, nursing equipment and even a travel coffee mug for those long commutes.
eNurse will be your new favourite online shop for all things nursing.
Head to www.enurse.com.au and use our code Humerus Nurses for a cheeky discount.
Two Humerus Nurses with Kelly and Alisha.
The podcast that records impromptu episodes without any preparation or research.
Welcome to Two Humerus Nurses, where we plan to bring you funny, informal, conversational chat about all things nursing.
So Kelly had a great idea that we would talk about our careers, the regrets, the highlights, our future dreams, like the highs and lows. And I think that's such a cool concept. So
I think it's been a while since we've done like an episode that's just us talking about, not like a debrief, but talking about nursing.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, it's been a little while.
Because we debrief when we start talking about reality TV and then nursing goes out the window.
Cam listened to the debrief the other day and sent me a text. He said, I do not listen to that leftist Triple J. He listens to Triple M, so correction. And I wouldn't be caught dead listening to Triple J.
Of course not.
And then he's like, and then I switched off because I'm not listening to your F-Boy Island or whatever that shit is that you talk about.
We're not actually talking about that today because I've only watched episode 7. I haven't finished episode 8.
Yep.
My child, every time I put the TV on, no mummy show.
So you want to start with the regrets. Let's start with the lows and then work our way up to the highs. Do you have any regrets?
The only things, well, I mean, I regret that Clexane medication error from a long time ago, but that didn't really do it. That didn't have any negative impact on me.
I think it's always good to like regret a medication error. Like I have a medication error that I did because I didn't read the instructions.
Yeah.
And it didn't give it to anybody. I just ruined $8,000 worth of a drug.
I guess when I think about it, I think one of the biggest regrets I have is, in a weird way, like I regret leaving theatre, but I do not absolutely, like I regret spending so long working in a place where I really didn't feel like I was a part of the team.
Yeah.
And like if I think about that from a, like, I don't know, psychological perspective, like that was really harmful, like that environment and feeling like everybody was out to get each other, being on edge, like no one really, like maybe a small percentage of the staff were really sharing with their knowledge and really like kind, but then the other majority of the staff were threatened or they were being bullied, so then they became bullies. Like it really was such an uncomfortable place to work. I think working with the anaesthetist was really good because you kind of didn't worry too much about what the rest of the team was doing.
Yeah.
And like I always had majority like good experiences working with the anaesthetist, but you know, I think I probably regret trying so hard to stay there when I really didn't feel valued and I don't know. I think that's probably like one of my regrets overall in my career is staying places where
you're not happy, 100% happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I don't actually have like any major career regrets. I probably waited too long to do my RN. But again, the timing was never right.
Yeah.
And then when it was right, I did it.
I feel the same about a postgrad, about specialising. Like the timing was never right for me.
Yeah.
So I'm still here nearly 10 years on not having specialised really.
Yeah. And I did a postgrad and the timing was, I did it during a year of my life where I had my first mental health crisis and it was the hardest thing I've ever done. Yeah. And I am in no rush. I really want to do a cancer-related postgrad.
Yeah. Because what's yours is in leadership management?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it would be valuable to me to do one in cancer, but I don't want to do it just for the sake of having said I've done it.
Exactly.
And the timing at the moment is not right. Like I've literally enrolled every year for the last 3 or 4 years to do it.
Yeah.
So I get emails from about 7 different
Oh my God.
unis because I've like started to enroll and now they have my email address. So I get them from the uni in Melbourne, Charles Darwin Uni, some online uni, some uni in Tasmania.
Did I tell you that after my grad year, I freaked out because I really wanted to work in peds and I couldn't get a job there because there were no jobs. You have to fucking kill someone to get a job there.
Yeah.
And so then I like on a whim applied for my midwifery postgrad and I got it. And then I didn't know what to do because once I got it, I was like, I really don't want this. So anyway.
I know. And I don't honestly can't see myself doing it in the next 2 years. I can't put that pressure on myself now. I'm not willing to do it. And so, yeah, I don't really have any major regrets. I've done a lot in my 23 years. I've jumped around. I've moved around. I've worked in so many different hospitals that I've literally never had long service leave. Somebody send me some long service leave. And so I have little minor regrets of actions that I've done and things that I maybe didn't do.
And I think if
when
you
opportunities presented themselves.
If you look at your career in isolation from the rest of your life, it's very easy to pinpoint regrets. But then if you put it into context, so for me, like I was really mentally ill for like 3 years. Like I was barely even functioning to get to work, let alone fucking study.
Yeah.
So,
but you did a lot at work in those 3 years. You got promoted.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But I think that was really the only part of my life that was going okay.
Yeah.
Everything else was kind of falling apart. But I couldn't never have put the pressure on myself to study at that point.
No.
And we also built a house in that point so at that time. And for me, like I look back and when I started my nursing career, I never ever thought that this is where I would be. I very much thought that I would be traveling internationally in nursing. I would be doing agency nursing. Yeah. I would not still be here in this town. Like it's, you know, when you look at you, like I said, like your career in isolation, it's very easy to criticize it. But then when you look at the other parts of your life that have been impacted by me staying still, like, or not so much staying still, but staying in the one place, like as in the one workplace.
Yeah.
Not that I've stayed still at all because I'm fucking like
you take every job
like
available
a rat in a
that's
cage,
in there,
literally.
It's just a very small area you get to rotate through.
I get to like do little things everywhere, which I love. But, you know, and I've gained really valuable skills.
Yeah.
As much as like, I don't know, as much as you can in a small hospital.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think, well, I, you know, built a relationship and I built
grew
a house
family.
and got married and had kids. And so I think as much as I really didn't have those priorities when I was starting my nursing career, and I definitely thought I would have specialised by the time I was 10 years, like I'm 9 years in now, I really thought that I would have, you know, specialised and been doing something fabulous. Yeah. Here I am. But it is
funny, isn't it, when you think about that? Because when I started nursing, I was an EN and I started in a big hospital and I was there for 3 years and I got a lot of experience and I was promoted really quickly because I'm a fast learner and I love to learn new things and do things and I love to upskill. Yeah. And then I went from a big city teaching hospital to Carnarvon, which is a small country hospital. I don't know, a few thousand. Like it's a pretty big town, I guess. Yeah. But as an enrolled nurse, you couldn't do anything. It didn't matter that I was trachea competent and I could, you know, care for a day 2 total necrosection patient, like specialing them. I'd come from this like big,
like having really high skills.
To this like, you can be
wipe this guy's
ass. Person in the aged care wing and do the roles and whatever. And,
she's really capable, so we'll give her twice as many patients.
Yeah, that's right. She can do in charge overnight. And so like it was like it wasn't a fall from grace, but it was like what I expected I might be able to do there was absolutely not. So I used that year to have so much fun. Like I was drunk all the time. Like I would walk into the pub and they would have our drinks on the bar ready to go. Like, you know, I became like, and I'm still friends on Instagram to this day with Matt, the bartender who was on My Kitchen Rules. Thanks very much. And he, like, we used to get locked in. And I learnt like I just learned so much about myself in that year. Like I worked with
as much as it wasn't important for your career, it was important for you as a person.
Yeah, and it made me realise that nursing didn't have to be my entire like personality.
Yes,
like,
yes.
I could be someone and just do nursing as a job.
Yeah.
And it literally was just a money-making thing for me. And I would prioritise my roster to be like, right, you're going to work all your shifts in a row and then you have 6 days off and I'm going to fuck off to Coral Bay and spend 6 days at the Backpackers in Coral Bay in a single room because I was a bit richer, so I had a job, and like just get drunk, go and, and it was really good for me. And then I moved to Broome and I had a little bit more skills in Broome. Like they let you do a little bit more.
Yeah.
And Broome had a lot more. It was a bigger hospital, obviously, because, and we did a lot more things, a lot more ED, a lot more surgical.
Yeah.
But while I was there, I got heaps of experience, got to go into CSSD and cover in there for 6 months.
Yeah, cool.
And, I got to assist in a couple of births and things like that because, there was...
Well, and that's the thing too, like you look at these smaller facilities, like, and I say this to the students when they come in, because I do a lot of the student orientation now. And I'm always trying to condition them for the possibility that they might apply for our grad program.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm always like, relating the experiences between being in a bigger hospital to being in a smaller hospital. Okay, yeah, in a bigger hospital you might get to see trauma patients, but you're not going to be able to do any procedures on them because you're going to be elbowing interns out of the way to do them.
Yeah, that's right.
And interns are going to be and you're not going to have time either. That's the other thing. You're not going to have time to thoroughly care for your patients because you're going to be so busy. And that's the thing, like the skills that I have learned, the things that I have seen, being in our small hospital, having a rural urgent care centre, like how many people can say that they like single-handedly, saw a patient walk in, have a respiratory arrest, and then I've like been responsible for reviving them as the leader with no doctor support.
Yeah.
Like there's like that's fucking insane, but it's also like
amazing.
Yeah. So, and even just, seeing births and things like that, seeing unmedicated, like natural births from people, like precipitated births.
Yeah.
There's so many different things that you see in a smaller facility and skills that you gain. Like I'm suturing.
Yeah.
Like I do sutures for patients who come in with lacerations and like that's something that you wouldn't do if you worked in a big ED and there's skills like that I've got that I didn't get until I came here.
No, that's right.
And so, and even like policy and procedure development.
Yeah.
And doing like, I give educational in-services on fucking anything and everything. At the moment, I'm going to be giving in-services on how to do policy and procedure development, which is not that exciting, but I don't mind some of that like bureaucratic stuff. But even like I've made some of the forms that we use. Like that's weird.
I created a form the other day, a survivorship care plan. I was like, I didn't make it. I cut and pasted from other people's forms and then I gave it to our form lady on this like A3 sheet of paper, all cut and pasted.
No.
And I said, can you format? No, that's how they like it. And then she was
I
like,
formatted my own. And
but you're
stunning.
clever, but I'm not. And that's why we have a forms lady. So
that's true.
She was like, thank
She just
you
changed
for setting it out. And I gave it to her and then a week or so later, she gave it back to me and I was like, you are incredible.
That's so
you spelled discharge wrong, so I'll give that back to you. But it's those little things now. Like I always assumed I would end up in management of some description because, that's the way you go. You climb the ladder, right? If you're that kind of person, you climb the ladder. And if you're not, you just don't. You just do your thing, right? And so when I first started nursing, I lived with one of my best friends and we would watch All Saints together on a Tuesday night. All Saints and taco night. And she would always call me she always call me like Matron Sloan from Maggie Sloan from Country Practice.
Oh, okay.
And
again, before my time.
Terry Sullivan is the matron or the unit manager in All Saints, right? And so it was always a running joke that I would, get Matron Sloan.
Yeah.
And I always laugh because I was like, that's never going to be me. Well, now it is. So but I don't feel, even though I've been a nurse for 23 years, I still don't feel old enough to be in charge of like a unit of people. And like, it's so interesting to me. And then I think about all the things that I've done in this unit, in this oncology unit, like created.
I don't think you're old enough. You're nearly 50.
Excuse me. not nearly 50 yet. Although I do age out of the 35 to 44 bracket in about 3 weeks' time.
I'm just
but that's
hating
okay.
Is it because you never took yourself that seriously?
Yeah. I still don't. I still find it hard. And I spent 18 months as a nurse unit manager, but it's had acting in front of it. And I keep reminding people I'm just acting. And they're like...
For who? There's no one else.
They're like, well, you're not. You're like, stop writing acting on there. Like,
get it off your email signature.
But it's like, it's just one of those things where you just... I think one of the highlights for me when I think about it, if we move on to highlights away from regrets, is that this oncology unit literally started with me.
Yes.
So
it really
they employed me. I was the first person employed in that unit. You were the sperm
and Di was the egg.
Yeah.
You've made this unit.
Because, like, that's gross. I want to be the egg.
You can be the egg. I don't, just saying.
But it was like they employed me and then they had to find a manager. And then they found Di. I literally met Di on the drive to Bendigo to do the education. Oh. Like, we got in a car together. I was like, hi, I'm Kelly. And thank God we got along because we spent a long time together after that. And then, like, we wrote, well, Di wrote majority of the policies because she set a lot of it up. But I set the IV trolleys up. I set the way the room functions. Yeah. We literally... Every part of that unit has my and Di's touch on it. Yeah. And that's why I'm like, we're going through a lot of change at the moment. And I'm just not ready to walk away from it because I don't feel finished yet. Like when Di left, I know she felt like she'd...
asking you to walk away, I think.
No, they're not asking me to walk away. It's just whether I want this position or not is the question. Yeah. And it's a big question for me. And it's like, but for me, that highlight of going from just an RN to A&M in the unit to nurse manager of the unit is like...
And you were the cancer resource nurse in there somewhere as well.
Yeah, just randomly. I've resigned from that role officially now. Well so I'm never taking that back ever. I didn't want it. It was just get me off the ward during COVID. That was why I took it. But it was like, it was just... It actually makes me feel really proud to see that I've managed to do it because... And nowhere else in any other hospital would I get this experience to be a nurse unit manager of like 4 staff members. Like, the acute manager always...
You've got the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I do. I have
the
like
acute
a
manager manages like 80.
Yeah, she's like, I was like, my chronos takes me 2 minutes and her chronos takes her like days because she's like 80 people that she has to fix up, sign off, do all the changes on. And I don't envy that at all. And obviously her things that she has to do... There's just so like that role is so huge, and I'm about to there's change coming that my role will increase, but it's not going to increase to that level. I feel fortunate that I can like literally step up in these increments, and that maybe I don't have any desire to leave where we are because my lifestyle, and I don't have to travel,
and that's the thing. Like I think people don't realize like that if you are going to leave your job in this town. It means commuting 40 minutes at least for another job.
Yeah. And maybe
that might
in
not
the future,
seem a lot for people who live in big cities. But for us it's a 42 kilometre.
Well,
it's a nearly 100 kilometre a day round trip.
I live like 10 Ks from work already. And so even if I got a job somewhere else, I would still have to come into the town, drop my child at school. Yeah. And then go wherever, which is backtracking either way.
And you lose so much time, you lose. It's and fuel costs a bomb.
I know, and I don't really want to. I love this little hospital; it's so good. But anyway, I just feel like as a where I am in my work life now, little Kelly would never have thought of that. I would never have thought that I could be here and actually be really content in my job. Do I want this in the future? I don't know. No, we'll see what happens. I do want to stay till 2025, get that long service leave though. I'm not going anywhere until I get that.
I feel like, do you have any instances that have been significant highlights? You've talked sort of generally, but do you have anything that sticks out if someone said to you, what is your biggest highlight of your career? What would you say? Or a specific instance that comes to mind when you think about a real high moment?
I think... there's a couple of patients who have had huge impacts on my life over the years, and one is from literally the second year of my nursing career, and we had a patient who had been in our unit for like 6 months. Now, we were a colorectal, ENT and ophthalmology unit.
That's strange.
I know, it's so random. And we were surgical. We didn't have long stays, but she had a bowel condition and had to have multiple surgeries and basically ended up in our unit for like 6 months and deteriorated over the last few months, and we knew she was going to die. And became quite close to the family, because obviously if someone's there that long, you're nursing them really regularly. And I was full-time, so obviously you end up nursing them quite regularly. Yeah. And they had big vac dressings and stuff, so you were spending a lot of time in there doing lots of cares and stuff with them. And a day or so before she passed away, she became very alert and sat up and ate dinner, and the husband had like a beautiful day with her, and it was a day all her family came to see her. And I remember one of the older nurses said, "She's going to die." And I was like, "No, look at her. She's like improving." And she goes, "A candle always burns brighter before it flickers out."
Oh my God.
And I remember her saying,
"Got nothing to do with all your good nursing."
No, I was like, and the next day she was unconscious and passed away. But I was in the room with them when they passed away, and I was holding her hand because we were having a conversation, and the husband said, I'm so ready to let go, and she's fought so hard, and it was a really lovely moment, and I was holding her hand and he was holding her hand, and then she just took a breath, and I'm pretty sure she exited through my body because I had a very strange experience, which I will never forget. And the husband just looked at me and he's like, "She's gone, isn't she?" And I called in the doctor and
open the window.
Open the window because you could, thank God. And she was. It was just a really beautiful moment because the family gave us. They wrote, they gave us like thank you stuff, and they wrote personal cards to nurses, and I got a card, and I still have it to this day. And he randomly left me a fondue set.
That's right.
Because we'd had conversations about stuff. Because I said cool. I loved hosting dinner parties.
Yeah.
And he
was it a cheese one?
Yeah, and in the 70s, his wife. She was saying how she always hosted these fondue parties.
Oh my God.
So he left me
Can
her
you have
fondue
a fondue
kit?
party when I finish having this kid?
Yeah, let's do that. And so it was like that was a really moment in my life that I was like, we can make a huge difference even if they can't survive.
Yeah.
And now fast forward 20 years into oncology, where that's literally the story of my life. And I have patients who, keep going because of what we say and do to them. And I know I have an amazing impact. So whilst it might not be a huge highlight for me, it's those little moments over my career where people say, there's a lady who runs the fruit and veggie store at the markets all locally around here, and her mother, she came in, they thought she was having a heart attack, and I'd done everything in urgent care and it was absolutely not cardiac. And then I suggested maybe it was anxiety. And we had conversations, and I gave her some information about local counsellors and stuff like that. And she followed up with a cardiologist and everything. But it was literally because she'd lost her dad, the mum had lost her husband just recently. And I still see this lady at all the markets, and every time she still chucks me an extra zucchini and says thank you. She come back in and brought me flowers and a card and said, you made a huge difference. Yeah. And I thought that wasn't literally, you're just doing your job.
It's crazy the things that people remember about you that you might not even, literally the other day, this mum come in with her kid and she goes, "Oh my God, Alicia's here." And she talks to her kid and she's like, "Oh, I told you you'd be seeing us 100 more times, blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, I can't for the life of me remember you or your son. And I felt really guilty because she knew me by name.
Yeah, I
remember seeing her face. I'm like, because he's her son is Ollie's age. I would have been tried to have fun with him. Yeah. And I always tell kids that the oximeter is the girlfriend machine. It tells me how many girlfriends they've got. So then they stick their finger straight in there because they want to know how many girlfriends this machine thinks they've got. And it's always 98. And then you're like, oh my God, you've got 100 girlfriends? They're just, think it's so funny. But, I was like, oh, I must have been really nice to her. I'm always surprised and patients will say things to Mick. "Oh, Alisha looked after my so-and-so And she was, and they say nice things. I'm like, oh, well, I must be doing okay.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't remember, like, I don't remember times when I've been, like, overly kind or whatever. Like, I gave someone a Spenco booty the other day. He looked like he just wanted to jump out of the bed and kiss me. Like, he was so happy. I'm like, oh, easily, please. But I think when we talk about, like, highlights, like, as much as I've had a lot of highlights throughout my career, like, I'd say one of them is probably becoming a clinical educator at, like, 5 years post-grad, which was crazy because I went to another hospital. I left where we are now and went to another hospital, worked as a clinical educator, was fucking anxious the whole time. It was awful. And the
Is
workload...
that because you had a bit of, like imposter syndrome?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But also because I think the workload, for instance, it was 0.5 across 2 campuses.
Mm.
Both of those campuses had hospitals and nursing homes and all these non-clinical staff who I was supposed to be doing their first aid and doing their basic life support and things for. And 0.5 across 2 hospitals and across 2 nursing homes. Like, it was, and then I had also the responsibility of the grads and the students. Yeah. So on a Monday, if I had students starting at both places, I was supposed to somehow figure out how to do their orientation and be in 2 places at once. And that was just, to me, totally nonsensical. Like, I could not make that happen.
Yeah.
And they would book them to start on the same day at different places. And so then I would meet one lot and then I really just felt like totally unsatisfied and I really felt like I couldn't do my job well because I couldn't be there. I just didn't have the time. And one of those 5 days a fortnight was conducting manual, like doing all of the mandatory competencies for all the staff. So technically it was 0.4 and in that time, like that's 2 days a week to figure out, like, to book education, to manage the students. And how the hell are you supposed to do student assessments if you're not there on a Thursday or a Friday?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it was just impossible. And I really felt like it looked great on paper.
It always looks good on paper.
And then when I got there, I thought this role needs to be at least full-time with an admin support. Like, there was just so much work. And I ended up, I think I did 12 months and I decided that I couldn't cope with the stress because it was just too much. But the whole process of getting that job and seeing the real, like, other side of things. And I think that really gave me an appreciation for management as much as sometimes, as an RN or an ANUM, you feel like managers might be out of touch or whatever, but they really just have so much work going on behind the scenes that you don't even realise. And I think that job really gave me that kind of insight because I was going to those management meetings and things like that I wasn't before. But lots of other, like, little highlights when I think, like what you were saying about being promoted. Like, I think when I came to our hospital, it was a last resort for me. I'd had a car accident and I was thinking that my life was going to change drastically. I was probably going to lose my license and, thinking, well, I need to get a job close to home. So that was literally why I started working there. And I remember friends of mine who I worked with at the bigger hospital were like, you're going to be so bored, you're going to fucking hate it there. Like, what are you going to do? How are you going to survive? And within a few months, I think within like 10 months of being there, like, I'd become an ANUM. So,
it's because you met me.
Was it?
Yeah,
I did
100%.
meet you in that time. I know. Yeah. But it was like, I think because when you, and that really gave me that sense of pride that I really hadn't had anywhere else, because I feel like once a workplace sees you as a junior, it's really hard for them to see you as anything else.
Yeah, definitely.
And to see that you have any value. Yeah. Like, when you come as a grad somewhere and then you stay on, they still see you as a learner, which was fine because I was still a learner, but I also felt like there was no credit where credit was due. Yeah. And then, moving to our hospital, it was like, oh, this girl, like, I was working, like, when I worked on surgical, I was like, you would have 3 total joint replacements and then you'd have someone else who was like nil by mouth having 4 hourly aspirates waiting for a bowel resection. You would be fucking busy.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I come to our workplace and it was just a different kind of busy. It was more manual intensive. You had more patients, but
the acuity was
lower. And so then I found it quite easy to manage my time there.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, well, you've got good time management, you've got good assessment skills, you're showing leadership potential, straight up you go.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and to be nurtured in that way, and I was like, oh my God, these people see value in me.
Yeah.
And these people feel like a team. And like, I remember a staff member had a really, really difficult, one of her sons has a lot of problems, and you could just see the whole ward comes around her. The whole staff are like looking out for her and making sure that she's okay. And like, I'd never had that anywhere in nursing before. It was very much it was very much like cliquey.
Yeah.
Like everywhere else I'd been had been like there was a group of people that socialised together and then nobody else does.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if you weren't in that clique and you always kind of felt on the outside of that clique, you know, that was sort of how it was.
Yeah.
Whereas coming here, everyone, it was like we've lived here, we grew up here, our husbands are brothers or our husbands are cousins or our parents grew up together or whatever it is, like living in that small community.
People were born in that bloody hospital.
Well, exactly. They've all
their
nursed
relatives,
each other.
Yeah, their relatives work in there or like
their colleague delivered their children. Like it's very incestuous, but it's very beautiful. And like I think I will say though, like specifically a highlight for me throughout my whole career, like this is a moment that I will never, ever, 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 ever forget in my entire life. As a grad, I was on kids ward and this girl must have been about 3 and she had stepped on a sewing needle and it had the thread like still on the end of it, right? Stepped on a sewing needle and it had bent. So it was like an L shape.
So you couldn't even pull it out.
Right. So she came in through ED. She came to the ward and she was going to go to theatre and have it removed. I said to her that I wanted to see it and her parents were like, she won't let you. And I was like, I really need to see it. Like I need to make sure that it is still there. That we're not going to send her up to theatre and it's gone or whatever. Anyway, so I really wanted to look at it and I told her, like, I looked at her in the eye and I was like, I promise you I'm not going to touch it. I just need to see it. So I like put my hands behind my back and she finally let me have a look at it. I looked with my eyes like I promised her I would, and then she like they must have wrapped it up or something. I can't remember. But I told her I wouldn't touch it and I didn't, right? She goes to theatre, comes back, and her parents have bought a bunch of flowers or like it was like a gerbera, like in a pot. It was really cute. And I'm like, oh, did you get flowers? And she's like, they're for you, this little girl. And I was like, why? Like I've literally nursed her for 5 minutes. Yeah. And her parents said, you're the only person who hasn't lied to her in this hospital.
Yeah.
And I like nearly cried. I was like, the number one rule with kids is you don't lie to them because they're not going to trust you and you need their trust. Like you need them to trust you if you're going to be looking after them. Yeah. And kids like have a very good intuition and they're like a very good judge of character. If you're going to lie to them, like you're dead to them.
Yeah, that's right.
And I just thought, how sad was that? Like she'd been through ED, she'd been like on the ward. I'd come on to my shift and she was already in a bed. Like how many people, and they're like every other person have tried to pull it out. Like
God.
Just saying to her, I'm just going to have a look at it and then grab their fingers and try to pull this thing out of the 3-year-old. Like why would you do that?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And I think that moment of like their ultimate gratitude for me doing the simplest thing and just honouring my word to this child, like it really changed the way that I think. Well, and it probably didn't change the way I deal with kids because I'm still totally honest with them and I don't lie to them and I'll never try and trick a kid that's a patient ever. Like it's different when it's your own kid, you fucking trick them all the time. Yeah. But I do think that it's probably changed the way like that I think about parenting as well, especially with Ollie. So she's got athlete's foot at the moment. Although Jess called it foot rot and that made me feel like a piece of shit. Anyway, so she has a little fungal foot thing because we obviously haven't been drying between her toes properly because she's 2 and I just figure they air dry. But
do you dry between your toes? I don't dry.
I never do, toes. But now I think about it, I'm like, I better. Well, it's getting harder and harder to get down there.
I was going to say, can you even see them? Yeah.
But now I have to put cream on her foot every night and she lies. She says it's all better. Her foot's all better, she reckons. But you know, the more you do it and the more I explain to her, I explain everything I'm going to do so that she's got an understanding, you know. So first we were cleaning it with saline because it was really gunky. And then we'd have to clean it and dry it and then put cream. And, you know, she gets braver and braver because she's more aware and she's got that experience to kind of back it up. But I think, like, number one, if you're ever nursing kids, like, do not fucking lie to them and do not trick them.
I mean, don't lie to any of your patients, really.
Yeah, I suppose. Unless they're old. I feel like we lie to old people all the time. Yeah, it's just a bit of jam.
I love how
laced
we talk
with
about
drugs.
Let's not lie to our kids, but Tooth Fairy, Father Christmas, Easter Bunny, they're all okay.
Yeah, because they get treats.
I have a massive Christmas issue with Santa. Anyway.
Are you getting sweaty armpits or sweaty balls walking to work in your scrubs? Well, every nurse needs a pair of scrubs that are breathable, super comfy, and not clingy.
Elitecare was designed by a nurse for nurses. They're 55% cotton blend, so they're cool and comfortable, durable, and have plenty of pockets. And when I say plenty, I mean like plenty. Pen loops, chest loops, everything for like your glasses, your name tags, and they have heaps of different designs. They're size inclusive up to a 5XL and have great colours.
Enos have a 100% satisfaction guarantee, free shipping on orders over $150, and are packed within 48 hours of ordering. And they literally have everything you could ever need to do your job.
Head to www.enurse.com.au to check out their whole range of Elitecare scrubs. Don't forget our code Humerus Nurses for a cheeky discount.
Enos loves our nurses.
What about future goals?
I have a huge goal.
Oh, God. You have like 10,000 goals and they change every day.
Well, no, this is actually something that I've been thinking about for a long time, but I've never fully committed. And it's probably been since I had Ollie that I've been thinking about this. Haven't done anything about it whatsoever because I know the way that my brain works. As soon as I pick up something and run with it, like I'll be all in for 5 minutes.
Yes.
And then I'll be all out.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like you need to sort that brain out first, maybe.
I agree.
Yeah.
And so that's why I've kept this on the back burner.
Yeah.
Because I want, like,
I think I know what you're going to say. Yeah.
I want to be medicated for like ADHD, if that's like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I have a lot going on in my head.
Yeah.
But I know that this is. I feel strongly pulled to this, right? So, and it's multifaceted again, but I see for myself in the distant future working privately as a nurse continence advisor and also then dabbling in childbirth education and then doing pelvic floor assessment and helping women with that because I've had issues with my own.
Yeah.
I had an amazing first birth and there were so many women and I feel really strongly that was because I was so well educated and I was so well prepared. I know that some women have terrible births and it's out of their control and I get that there are like situations where it can't be helped and you can be the most educated person in the world and not have a good birth and I appreciate that. But I also feel like a lot of women go into birth unprepared and they end up at the mercy of the medical system. And I think if you are educated, you can better advocate for yourself and you can you know, and you can also get yourself into a mental space. And I'll never forget one of our colleagues, Sarah, if you're listening, this is Sarah, a different Sarah, another Sarah, said to me that when you have a baby, she goes, when you go into labour, this is when I was pregnant with Ollie, she said, just remember that it's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, man, I've never been good at running.
Yeah. Or waiting or long-term stuff.
None of that shit, right? And then she told me about like her birth versus her sister's birth and how her sister really went in guns blazing like this was going to be over within a few hours kind of situation, whereas Sarah went in knowing that you're in it for the long haul and you've got to prepare yourself mentally. And she was the only person that really said to me that you've got to, it's a lot about mental preparation, especially when you're transitioning. It gets fucking hard. Like there's so many aspects to that. And I feel like if I can help women have a better birth, maybe not be so traumatized by birth, like that would be, and I feel like that would tie in as well with like doing continence and also like doing pelvic floor assessment because I've got an anterior prolapse after Ollie and I'm suffering symptoms with it now, like with my second pregnancy. I did see a physio and I'm still seeing a physio, but it's like, you know, I feel like without that support, I would be so scared. Yeah, and I'm still a little bit worried about how birth's going to go with a prolapse because I didn't have one before I had Ollie. But you know, I think if I can help and if I can help women who've had pelvic floor dysfunction and issues, and I know it's because I've been constipated my whole life. I'm pretty sure I talked about this like
all the time.
The first episode.
Yeah.
I don't know how I thought that I wasn't going to have a prolapse, but
that's a good goal to have.
Yeah,
and it's a good goal to work towards.
Yeah, so I see myself. I'm been really looking at some short courses at the moment, just incontinence specifically, and then I'll consider doing a postgrad down the track. But I'm just not. I don't want, like I said, I don't want to jump the gun. No. I'm letting it sit and see if I'm still keen in a year or when I'm ready to study because I can't get medicated while I'm pregnant.
No.
So,
I think that that's important for you to sort that your brain out, whether it is ADHD or it's not ADHD. I think it's important to work out how you can manage those hyperfixations because they'll only negatively affect you trying to do this.
And then also the sort of the finger in every pie thing, the 1,000 hobbies thing.
Oh, yeah.
I
mean, it's
the
just classic.
lack of life admin. Like it's a lot of
classic M. Rasciano.
Yeah. Well, that's how it all kind of came about. But there's so many things, and I really am. I'm so self-aware though. I've always been someone who's been very self-aware, and I guess if when it comes to the future and comes to highlights as well, like, I think I'm really proud. Like my dad used to call me a gob off. He used to tell me that I couldn't shut up to save myself, which was true. And I still have like emotional outbursts, and I still like am a bit of a freak. But I feel like if someone like me who struggles with a lot of those things can be, I love my job. I love working in education. I love that I can be a clinical support nurse. I can go to theatre and I can recover a patient while they go to lunch, or I can go to oncology. So you can go to a union meeting. Actually, that was like the highlight of my day, talking to that patient. He was so cool. And like I can go and do a PICC line dressing on the water. I can go and support someone to put in a male catheter. Like there's so many things that I'm so grateful that I can do. I can go into theatre and I can get scrubbed and like scrub in as the surgeon's assistant because they have a staff member short. Like I love that flexibility of my day when I do education. So I feel like
I think that's a really good dream. We talk about, I've heard you talk about lots and lots of different things that you've wanted to do in the time that I've known you.
Like that time I really wanted to become a vet.
Or a critical care nurse or a paramedic or
there's lots. Go back to theatre and specialise or go and do my postgrad. And that's the thing, when you talked about doing your postgrad, I'm like, I could do my postgrad in education so that I've got it.
But
big fucking deal.
Yeah.
It's not going to change anything.
And you can only get paid for one postgrad. I'm already getting paid for one postgrad. So what's the matter?
That, actually.
Yeah, you can only have one certificate allowance.
But yeah, I feel like if I'm going to, and that's the thing, probably why I've never studied is because I've had such a trouble committing to a specialty. But I feel like
this is what makes me laugh about a friend of the pod, Mirinda, making Nurse Mez. Every time she does a placement or a different AIN shift on a ward, she falls in love with it, and that's going to be her new specialty. And every time I see her post about it, I just lol, because
I'm like that.
But also it doesn't, in nursing you're allowed to love literally every specialty because you don't have to specialise. You could do a year in med surg, you could go do a year in mental health, you could then be like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm bored, or I just want to change and go to the operating theatres or go do cardiology or go do whatever. And yes, like there's all this like hype around what's your specialty, pick your specialty, but fuck that, I've literally done everything. And I've done med, I've done like medical oncology wards, I've done surgical wards, I've done multiple different types of surgical wards because I worked in big hospitals and they were all different. I've done aged care, I've done country nursing, I've done operating room, I've done oncology, I've done urgent care, I've done like every level from EN to RN.
But you are a specialist now.
Now I am. I specialise in oncology, and that's the thing. But I never thought I would.
And I do, not that I feel like a fraud, but I do feel somewhat disappointed that I haven't specialised. But then again, like if I look back.
But as an educator, I think you need to be across, especially in a hospital like ours where you've got to be able to have a finger in every pie.
Exactly. And I love that I've got that theatre background. Because it adds something that no one else in the team has.
But I also know that if I want to leave where I am, I can get a job anywhere.
Exactly.
it doesn't matter if I know this, but I'm not going to go get a job in cardiology because I love
Hate
myself
hearts.
too much and not want to do that. But I can go and, get a job somewhere else and know that even if I'm not 100% over it, I can learn it because I'm capable.
I'll never forget when I came to our hospital from working in theatre and I had to give someone like medications. I was like,
what?
Fuck.
How do we do that?
It's only been 2 years.
I had to give someone antibiotics the other day because we have and Andrea and I had to look up the book. Like, we have 2 highly qualified skilled nurses. We're looking up the injectables handbook because we couldn't remember how to draw it up.
I'm like a huge advocate. I don't care what it is. I will, unless it's ceftriaxone or cefazolin. If it's 1 gram of ceftriaxone or cefazolin, do not look it up. If it's anything else, or if it's 2 grams of anything else, always look it up.
I emailed and asked for the latest version of the injectables handbook.
It's on the internet.
No. It's been since I've used it. And Susie, our manager, replied back saying, just use the Clinician's Health Channel.
Exactly.
It's all there. And I got on the computer and I was like,
again?
Clinician's Health Channel.
You did not
linked.
Google it.
It's linked on our intranet. Then I just went in and I was like, oh, wow, look, there's MIMS, the injectable handbook, like everything I need.
The therapeutic guidelines.
Because I was like, because it had been
Surely
so
you would
long.
use the Royal Women's thing too, wouldn't you?
What for?
I don't know. Don't you get pregnant patients?
No.
Oh, swear.
We have the pregnant patient for the odd Ferinject, but we don't give chemo or anything to pregnant people.
No,
they wouldn't fit our criteria. But I laugh because it's just been so long since I've had to look at the injectables handbook because we know what we give the same stuff over and over. And our chemo, we don't look at that. We look at Evercure. So it was like, I was like, oh, it's online. I said to Andrea, we're not getting a new book. She goes, but I want a book. And I'm like, mate, just use the computer.
Print them off.
Use the old one.
Make your own book.
It's like 10,000 pages. But anyway, so I don't know about my dreams. At the moment, I'm just happy chugging along where I'm at, learning this num role. Does that look like bigger things in the future? I don't know at this moment. I don't want to focus on the future at the moment because I need to focus on now and what I've got now. And I feel like I'm in a spot now that I can see myself staying for a few years. Yeah. And so unless that changes, I don't really. And the future for me probably just looks like going back to shift work if that's the case. And I don't want to think about that.
No, that's right. And I feel like at the moment for me too, like my role has changed at work as well.
Yeah.
And I would say that maybe down the track it will be for the better, but in the short term, I really can't see the value in it at the moment. But I feel like my satisfaction level, and for me, like a big part of where I work has to do with satisfaction, and it has to do with, do I feel like I'm contributing? Do I feel like I'm putting out good quality work? And at the moment, I really don't. And I just think it's all a bit like muddy at the moment. And so then, of course, my care factor starts dwindling.
You're so close to like maternity leave
and
as
that's
well.
the other thing as well, because that's in the back of my mind. And like I have this foot, I think I have plantar fasciitis, but there's something else wrong with it. I don't know, because now my ankle hurts, and now like today I didn't go to work because I like can barely walk. Yeah. And so I'm like 25 weeks pregnant with a limp, and now my hip hurts. Like everything hurts.
End up with Jess on the crutches.
I know, and I said that to Michael today. I'm like, I actually think I'm going to need crutches because I can't keep walking on this foot the way that it is. And I'm like, how the fuck do you do 2-year-old and pregnant with crutches? Like, nah, can't deal. Yeah. And although she does put herself on the potty now, which is fucking awesome.
Yeah, that's.
But yeah, I just I'm so ready to finish as well now. Yeah. That this change of the role has kind of added to that need to finish.
Unsettled, yeah.
So yeah, exactly. And I think pretty much since I went back to work after Ollie till now, I've had this urge of like feeling like this place might be done for me. But then when I look at my alternatives, the commute is
too much.
Yeah, and that's a real drawback. Like, but that's I guess a compromise that you have to make if it's a sacrifice you have to make if that's really what you want. Yeah. So I guess that's why I'm still kind of just sitting where I am. Yeah. Until.
And I guess you're lucky because, no, not lucky, but I guess it's fortunate for you because you do have a bit of a break coming up, so you can focus,
Yeah.
in your sleep deprived state with a newborn on what you might want in the future.
But I'm also going to finish 6 weeks. I'm going to finish at 34 weeks this time, whereas last time I finished at 36 and a half.
Yeah.
So this time I'm finishing at 34 weeks just because of my pelvic floor, and I don't know how that's kind of going to look at that point.
Yeah.
So finishing that little bit earlier to give me some time with Ollie.
Yeah.
And then maybe as well some time to, do a short course, fit something in and then really see if that's what I want. But I'm excited about the future.
It's been a lovely chat. Do you have a little bit of just one sentence of advice for like the people like Mez maybe that like sit and just, I don't know, want to do everything and are like super keen and just they're not tainted by the job
well,
yet.
Well, I feel
we
like
are.
my wisdom, oh my God, just quickly before we finish, so we had an EN student last year who I like precepted and who I orientated and stuff. She's come back as a grad and she's just rotated to the ward. And the other day we had a patient who wouldn't leave the urgent care centre and there was nothing wrong. Like we couldn't find anything wrong with her. And I was like, basically in a gist, I said to the nurse, she was like, oh, she doesn't want to go. And I was like, I don't care. Like drag her out if you have to, right? Like as a joke. Like I said it as a joke. And the student was like, well, now she's a grad. She's like, God, I've missed you. And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, just the way you talk. And I'm like, no, this is only 10 years in. Yeah. This is only 10 years in. Like this is what happens to you when the care factor goes.
Compassion fatigue.
I know, that's exactly, yeah. And I'm like, I've all the fatigues at the moment with this fucking kid as well. And now this limp, I don't know. Fucking anyway. But I will say if wisdom has taught me anything, and especially because of the way that my brain works, sit on stuff. Don't get excited and jump the gun because that's something that I've done my whole life. Mm-hmm. I've jumped the gun without thinking things through, without thinking what does that look like, without even just tasting it or trying it. Like, so for instance, like this continence thing, I've gone and watched some anatomy and physiology videos and seeing how I feel about that. And then I'm doing my own pelvic floor course, like for my own from I think it's Core Floor Restore. So just doing her course and like as a patient, I guess, or as the client, doing that and just kind of experiencing all sorts of different parts of it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do, like I said, this short course just to see how I feel about it before I commit to something, because in the past, like the midwifery postgrad, never even seen a baby be born, and I decided that I was really wanted to look after babies, so I'll become a midwife. But I never really thought things through properly and really considered how they would affect my life, or would they improve, like just really be thoughtful in your decisions, because now I don't tend to jump. Yeah.
As Dr. Phil says, if it's a good idea now, it'll be a good idea in 2 weeks when you've waited and sat on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree with you, Philly.
Dr. Phil, I mean, problematic, but that's okay.
What about you? Do you have one piece of advice?
Well, my probable piece of advice is similar to you. You know, I just, you can do anything. Honestly, you can do anything that you want, and you don't think, oh, I don't have any skills in that area, so I can't do it. If you want to change and there's a job advertised, go for it.
Absolutely.
Learn the art of talking yourself up. Write your cover letter as if you're describing your best friend.
And not only that, I will say to add to that, okay, so you're saying like just try it, and I'm like, you need to consider all, like, be thoughtful and consider all your options, but I agree with what you're saying, like don't put restraints on yourself. Like
No, don't be like, oh, there's a job in cardiology. I don't know anything about hearts, and I've only ever done like medical. I'll never get it. Yeah, well, you're not going to get it with that attitude.
No, exactly right. And this is something else that I will say, and I will say it till I'm fucking blue in the face. And this is how I got a job as a clinical educator with 5 years experience. I went to my interview.
Doesn't equal experience.
No, and I went to my interview, and basically, like, that is your opportunity to convince them that you are the right person for this job. If you walk in unsure, you're going to walk out and they will be unsure.
Yeah.
So, like, you need to convince them that you're the person for the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a job going, just a fixed term contract, and one of the girls who was a grad last year and RN this year, who had done grad rotation with us last year, does casual for me now, applied for the job. Now, her cover letter was
exceptional,
mind-blowingly brilliant. Like, now she knows me. She works. She's like literally the person I go to first when I have it.
And
like,
she would have been
shifts.
the person to get the job. Yeah.
All I needed from her was a letter. Like, I just needed her to apply for the job.
To literally put a line saying, expressing my interest in the role of
because I have to. You have to advertise.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And she wrote a full-page letter covering everything that she needed to cover as if I didn't know her.
Amazing.
And I was like, I'm stealing this for when I need to apply for a job, because like that was really good. And like she didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
But she still did it because that she has a conscience, I guess, and she's very just wanted the job.
Yeah.
And that made me go, well, why wouldn't I? I mean, no one else applied for the job, thank God, because I only wanted her, but like, well, I didn't only want her, but you know, like it was an internal ad. There was no one else going to do it. But I was like, it just go. You just got to sell yourself and sell yourself like you would sell your best friend.
And I say this like because I think I attribute like interviews kind of like how when I go to an audition like for a show.
Yeah.
I need to convince
like
this panel of people that I am this role.
Yeah.
And that I want to walk away and I want every single person there to totally disregard every other person that walks in that room for that role. And that's how it should be when you go for an interview. Not that you should sound like a cocky cock. I was going to say cunt. But like walk in there and be like, absolutely I can do that. Like and as well, and now that I'm getting off topic, give them an example of a time when you have done that.
Yeah.
Give them an example because past performance is the best indicator of future performance.
And also, if you're a student and you're applying, it doesn't matter that you don't have any nursing history.
No.
If you've worked at Macca's and you dealt with a situation, they're examples.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't matter that it's not nursing. If you handled a stressful situation at Macca's when you put pickles in an order and they didn't want pickles and they came back and yelled at you and you talked them down and gave them a free burger.
Resolution. There you go. Look
Mate,
at this.
you just did it.
Change management. New burger came in at Macca's. Yeah. Change management.
Yeah.
There's so many. There's people. Yeah. Come to us. Maybe I'll start interview consults as well. No, see, jumping the gun.
But do you know what you could do? My second best piece of advice is to like go rate us 5 stars on your podcast platform that you're listening to us on. Go do it.
Especially Spotify, because we find it really hard to get into the charts on Spotify.
Oh, I haven't even looked at the charts lately.
I literally never look at them anymore. I'm sure they'll email us if we hit number 1. That's all I worry about. But yeah, no, and follow us on Instagram if you don't already follow us. At Two Humerus Nurses podcast. So that's humorous like the bone.
You could email us first.
Oh, you can email us too. hello@twohumerusnursespodcast.com.
Can you tell we didn't write a run sheet for this? We just doing it off the top of our head.
Off the cuff, mate. Well, we have a run sheet. It's got 3 things written on it.
hello@twohumerusnursespodcast.com.
Correct.
Humorous like the bone.
HUMERUS.
Bye.